It's the final release in the wood finishing series from Maker's Mark. Let's see if they saved the best for last. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch, and thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So that's right, today we're taking a look at Maker's Mark Wood Finishing Series release for 2023 BEP. It's going to be the only release for 2023, and that BEP stands for Barrel Entry Proof. For all intents and purposes, this is the last release of the Maker's Mark Wood Finishing Series, at least as we know it currently. I believe it was the master distiller and maybe the master blender of Maker's Mark who have moved on from the distillery and gone to start off on their own adventure and do their own thing, which is great for them, but that does mean some things are maybe shifting at Maker's Mark, and the Wood Finishing Series, from what Maker's has released about this so far, is going to look a little bit different. Let me just read the back of this bottle for you so that you know what's going on here. They tell the story pretty well. With our 2023 Wood Finishing Series release, we're showcasing the influence of our unique 110 barrel entry proof. We go in at this lower proof to achieve the one-of-a-kind taste profile Bill Samuel Sr. established in 1953. Anything less or more wouldn't truly be or taste like the Maker's Mark you know. To celebrate our special 110 entry proof, we've created an expression that features even more of what you get from a lower entry proof. More wood sugars, more barrel characteristics, and ultimately, a more flavorful sip. Our first chapter of the Wood Finishing Series has been a way of honoring all the elements that make makers, makers. But with this seventh and final expression, we're closing the chapter out, with a just as exciting chapter to follow. Enjoy accordingly. All right, so that kind of tells you they're planning to do something next. Not exactly sure what it's going to be, but the Wood Finishing Series as we know it is coming to an end with this expression that showcases everything that goes into making a lower barrel entry proof taste the way it does. On the front here it says it is 110.7 proof, so pretty close to what it goes into the barrel at, and tasting notes and expression with prominent wood sugars, bringing forth strong notes of vanilla, caramel, and sweet spice. Like all the other Wood Finishing Series, this is finished with 10 virgin toasted American oak staves, so very interesting. I'm excited to see how this one stacks up to the rest and excited to see what they do in the future, but before that, we got to dive into this whiskey and how it actually tastes. All right, without further ado, let's dive in on the nose, palate, and finish and see how good Maker's Mark BEP is for 2023. Do want to say that this bottle, I believe the MSRP now is around $70. I was able to pick this up for $78. The mash bill is the same as everything that you'll get from Maker's, which is 70% corn, 16% wheat, I think it's red winter wheat, and 14% malted barley. All right, let's dive in on the nose. Oh yeah. The first thing I get on this is peaches. Peaches and a vanilla cream. Lots of vanilla. Almost like vanilla pudding. There's a good amount of oak on here too. Kind of like a nice spicy, drier oak, mixing well with that sweetness. There is a caramel nature to it as well. So some of those wood sugars for sure coming through. Maybe along with that peach, there's a little bit of apple. Oh yeah, there's a spiciness to it, like a cinnamon, allspice, maybe a little bit of clove, but it's giving me an impression of age. It's not aggressive, but it's got a little bit of a simmering spice. This reminds me a lot on the nose of something like a Barrel Vantage, which had a lot of that peaches and cream, but maybe a little bit more like a Knob Creek 12 or 18 with some of those deeper, richer oak notes coming through. Very nice, very inviting. It's a pretty subtle nose overall. It's not jumping out of the glass a ton, but there's plenty of flavor in there, or aromas, I guess I should say. And I think it promises a pretty nice, flavorful, smooth sip. So let's go in on the palate, everybody. Cheers. Whoa. Way more spice on the palate than I was anticipating based on the nose. That was there underneath, but it really comes forward on the palate. I got a lot of cinnamon, a lot of that allspice, and kind of this oaky, little bit of leather and cigar box kind of spice too, which again, reminding me of like a Knob Creek 18, something that has a presence of age and some of that oak spice really coming through. That's great. It does have a nice sweet caramel, peach, and vanilla presence to it wrapped around all of that, and that's more of what I'm getting on the finish, is some of those nice wood sugars. It kind of tames down and tapers off slowly. Okay, so a lot of spice on that first sip. Let's go back in for a second sip now that my palate's a little more acclimated, and we'll see if we can pick out some more flavors. Cheers. Okay. Yep. So it tamed down a little bit. My palate's a little more acclimated. I got a lot more of that vanilla, almost a little bit of chocolate, and now kind of like a hazelnut mixed in there as well. There's still plenty of that oak and spice to go with it that really kind of blooms, especially the mid palate. I feel like that's the star of the show. But that chocolate came along with it, a little bit more of that peach here as well, maybe a little bit of that apple that I was sensing, and some good brown sugar overall. So a nice complex sip. I love how the peach and apple and vanilla is kind of mixing in. I will note there on that sip, there was a little bit more astringency, something I'd put in the category of a black tea, or I guess it kind of goes with that leather and oak, just a little bit bitter, a little bit astringent. It's balanced out pretty nicely by that peach and vanilla, but it's definitely there, and it builds up on the palate. All right, let's go in for our third sip. Let's evaluate the finish and then kind of evaluate this whiskey as a whole overall. Just before we do that, I do want to say, if you're enjoying all the content coming out of the channel, would love to have you aboard for all of 2023. So if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing that. While you're at it, hit that like button, helps get the video out, and comment on the video as well. If you've been able to taste this expression yet, or if you're hunting it, let me know. What are your thoughts on BEP? All right, let's go in for the third sip. Cheers. Yeah, that is a nice sip. That is a good bourbon, man. Again, a little bit of astringency, a little bit of that black tea came through, maybe a little bit of bitter oak, but so much of it is this really nice oak presence, a sweet brown sugar and caramel going along with that, the sort of cigar box, cinnamon, allspice, clove spiciness that comes through. I have never really gotten that much spice and that much sort of presence of age on a Maker's Mark product before, and it's really shining here, which is great. And then the peaches and cream note with a little bit of apple in there somewhere as well. Really nice. What's lingering on the palate for me is that nice, strong vanilla pudding, vanilla cream note with some of that oak spice and a little bit of that brown sugar note, maybe even a touch of chocolate. So it's a nice, well-rounded finish. Actually, so much of what you get on the palate sticks around on the finish for quite a long time, which I don't get on a lot of whiskeys. The finish is nice and flavorful and might even be the strongest part of this whiskey, and nice and balanced too as a finish. All right, overall thoughts here on Maker's Mark BEP. I do think that this is a little bit atypical for makers, a little bit different, which I'm grateful for, and I love trying new things, and I think they're gone outside their comfort zone a little bit. The barrel entry proof in terms of showing off those wood sugars and some of the oak and sweet spiciness, oh yeah, they nailed it. Great description from them. Kind of limited. I think there's more fruit and peach and apple in there than they let on, so that's a great surprise. I think this is another super solid release. For 70 to 80 bucks, again, Maker's Mark Wood Finishing Series releases have just been killing it. I am 100% on board. I think this is a automatic pickup if you're able to see it. I'm gonna have to compare to the other Maker's Marks from recent releases, the BRTs and the FAEs. I don't have the RC6 or anything before the FAEs, but gonna have to try it against all of those and see how it stacks up. But right now, I'm thoroughly enjoying this, and I think this is a very solid, if not like bordering on great whiskey. All right, that's my thoughts, guys. Let me know if you've been able to taste BEP so far in the comments below. This 2023 release, probably maybe the only one we're gonna see from Maker's Mark this year. We'll see what they do next. If you have any insights or thoughts on what they're going to do next, put those in the comments below too. Until I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.